You know, the 18th century in India, it wasn't just another page in a history book. We're talking about a time of absolute chaos, a brutal, transformative era that saw one of the world's mightiest empires just crumble. But, and this is the really cool part, from those ashes, all these new dynamic powers began to rise. So today, let's get into it. We're going to unpack exactly how that happened.
Okay, picture this. It's 1739. You're in Delhi, the very heart of the Mughal Empire. But the city is on fire. The Persian ruler, Nadir Shah, has just torn through the capital. And this account from the time, it paints a picture of just total devastation. The wealthy turned into beggars literally overnight. But here's the thing. This wasn't just a random attack. It was a massive, flashing red light, a symptom of an empire that was already collapsing.
And that's the real story here. This chaos didn't just appear out of nowhere. No, this was the final breaking point for the once invincible Mughal Empire. It had been, for lack of a better word, rotting from the inside out for years.
See, the problem started way before Nadir Shah even showed up. We're talking about years and years of super expensive, draining wars under Emperor Aurangzeb that just completely emptied the treasury. And after he died, well, you had a string of pretty weak rulers who couldn't really control their own powerful nobles. The whole imperial machine was just sputtering and grinding to a halt.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures how bad things had gotten. I mean, think about it. A writer at the time is saying that the big, powerful lords couldn't even collect taxes from their own lands. The peasants were having these amazing harvests, but the lords, they got nothing. And let's be real, when a government can't even collect its own money, you know it's lost all control.
Okay, you want a number that really drives home how weak the Mughals had become? How about this? 50 crores. That's the estimated value, just in jewels, that Nadir Shah walked away with from Delhi. This haul included the world-famous peacock throne. Can you imagine? An empire with that much mind-boggling wealth, but so weak it couldn't even protect it. It was, quite literally, right for the pick. So here's the bottom line. With the Mughal authority just shattered, this huge power vacuum opens up across the entire subcontinent. And you know what they say about vacuums, right? Something always rushes in to fill it. It was the perfect opportunity for ambitious new leaders and entire communities to step up and say, okay, it's our turn now. So who were these new players on the scene? Well, let's start with the Rajputs. These warrior clans had this really long, complex relationship with the Mughals, and honestly, they were in the perfect spot to use this crisis to their advantage.
See, a lot of these influential Rajput rulers weren't outsiders. They were already part of the system. They'd been high-ranking governors and commanders for the Mughals. So they already had power, they had armies, and they had deep, deep roots in their homelands like Rajasthan. So as the emperor's influence started to fade, they just grabbed the reins and tightened their own grip on power. And they were smart about it too. This wasn't just a random land grab. You had leaders like Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur and the famous Sawai Raja Jai Singh of Amber. They used their official jobs as Mughal governors to basically build their own little kingdoms. They'd snatch up nearby imperial lands and then build these incredible new capitals. Jaipur is a perfect example, as these big, bold statements of their new independence.
All right, let's switch gears and head north, up to the Punjab. Because what was happening there was something else entirely. We're watching a religious community transform itself into a serious political and military force.
And look, this didn't happen overnight. This was a journey that took over a century. You can trace it back to a moment of persecution, the execution of Guru Arjan, which really politicized the whole Sikh movement. But the absolute game changer was in 1699 when Guru Gobind Singh created the Khalsa, this incredible community of warriors. The final step? 1765, when they basically said, we're in charge now, and started minting their own coins.
Yeah, the Khalsa, that was the key. It was the institution that took the Sikh community and turned it into this disciplined, unified fighting force. They weren't just a religious group anymore. They were organized, they were ready for political action, and they were ready to rule themselves. And they had this powerful belief fueling them, this idea that the Khalsa was destined to rule. I mean, Raj Karega Khalsa, that's not just a saying. It's a powerful rallying cry. It's what drove their amazing resistance, first against the Mughals and later against other invaders. It was that potent mix, a super tight-knit organization and this unshakable belief in their destiny that let them carve out their own state in the Punjab.
Okay, so while all that is happening up north, let's travel hundreds of miles south, down into the rugged hills of the Deccan Plateau. because another major power was rising there, built from the ground up by a true legend.
We have to talk about Shivaji, seriously. Under his absolutely brilliant and frankly audacious leadership, the Marathas came storming out of those Deccan hills to become one of the most powerful military forces in India. This guy directly challenged the full might of the Mughal Empire and became a legend for it.
And his genius was really twofold. First, he was a master of guerrilla warfare. He used that rough terrain to his absolute advantage. But, and this is just as important, he was a fantastic administrator. He built a stable, well-funded state with a clever tax system. You had the chauth, which was basically a protection fee from neighboring lands, and the sardeshmukhi, an extra tax based on hereditary claims. This system gave them the money and the foundation they needed to eventually expand into a massive empire.
So let's pull back for a second. By the mid-1700s, the political map of the Indian subcontinent looked completely different. The old, single, centralized Mughal Empire, gone.
And what's so fascinating is that these new states weren't all the same, not at all. The Rajputs built on what they already had, their royal families. The Sikhs created something totally new, a military and religious movement all in one. And the Marathas, they blended cutting-edge military tactics with solid, centralized government. You got three totally different playbooks, but they all led to the same outcome, the end of the Mughal era.
So what you end up with is a subcontinent that has been completely transformed. It's no longer one giant empire. Instead, it's this vibrant, competitive, and often chaotic patchwork of regional kingdoms, all vying for power.
And that's really the main thing to take away from all this. The fall of the Mughal Empire wasn't just an ending. It was a spectacular beginning. It totally reshaped the political map and set the stage for the next incredible chapter of history. Which leaves us with a huge question, right? What happens next? What happens when all these powerful, ambitious new states start bumping up against each other? And what about those European traders who are starting to show up on the coast? How are they going to fit into this new Game of Thrones?